Now on to our third critical conversation that we think every couple should have before they get married: financial goals and money management. Now, if mentioning finances and money goes, oh, boring, dull conversation, we're going to talk about bank accounts and to combine and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's not this conversation. But if you do want that conversation, which I think is actually an exciting one and not boring at all, we do have an episode where we talk about building financial trust in your relationship, marriage, and money. It's episode 8. We'll put a link to the description. And that's where we go into should you manage your money and the tacticals. That's not the conversation that we think you really need to have pre-marriage. Yes, you need to talk about those things. Those are great conversations. And I think most people actually have that particular conversation. The one they don't have is the conversation about what does money represent for us. This critical money conversation should really focus on what does money represent for you and should serve as a way to pressure test your alignment around there. So what do some of the questions that we think help identify your philosophy of money look like? The first question is, what is money for? Now, Melissa, I'm going to challenge you. Think back to when you were 20, when we were starting to build our relationship. We were committed, we were premarital, and we didn't have money, right? So what did money mean to you? What was your view of money back then?
My view of money, that's a good question.
And has it changed?
Well, absolutely. And then it was, can I save enough to go to grad school? Can I save enough for, hey, we are talking about marriage. Can I, what does that look like? It was more of a how to acquire, I think, was the way I viewed money.
Okay, so I would interpret that to your view on money was, I have some aspirational goals that take finance. So money for you was a tool to
meet those goals.
To meet those goals.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good way of putting it.
All right. What is money to you 30 years advanced? You've had a good career. You've married a husband who's had a good career. You have a little more resources than you did in your 20s. We were dirt poor in our 20s. So we always joke that in that money, do you combine finances or not? Sure, why not? We don't have any money, so let's combine it. Let's go.
You have a nickel, I have a nickel. Now we have a dime.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing.
So let's say you're a little further along than that now. So how do you view money now? What's your default? When I say, hey, what does money mean to you at this point?
That's interesting because this sounds kind of flippant, but I don't think about it as much because we've done a really good job over the years of getting prepared. We set our goals, ideas about retirement. We haven't maybe asked all of the deep questions on that quite yet. We'll get there. Something for next time, maybe.
Right. But what does money mean to you?
Money.
When I say money, what does it mean to you?
Safety.
Okay.
Knowing that we have the money for what we want to do and that we have the means to get that. We both have good jobs. We both like our jobs. I plan on staying in my job until I retire.
Okay. You're getting into careers. You're getting into all that sort of stuff. Okay. I'm focused on money. Ask me the questions now.
All right, Michael. What does money mean for you? So let's start with your 20s.
All right. So in my 20s, money was survival. Like I didn't come from money. You didn't come from money. So I would say our foundation for money was unstable. So money in my 20s was about having enough. It wasn't abundance. It wasn't I would say it would be disingenuous to say we lived in scarcity because our parents did. I mean, we had everything we needed. And we've covered this in an earlier episode where we had all the things we needed growing up, both you and I and our families. We just didn't have a lot of the extras, right? But I would say my dad was single parent, right? So you're talking one job, your parents, single earner because your mom stayed at home for a lot of the time. So I said for me, early on, money was stability. And I think, now ask me the second question. What is money now? I'm helping you along.
All right, Michael. So how do you view money now, 3 decades later?
Money now is what good can we do with money? So we've moved way past the safety and security part. We're very blessed in that area. You alluded to this. You've had a successful career. I've had a successful career. We're on a good foundation. We've launched our kids. Our kids are in a good foundation. So I think we've moved into an abundance mindset. We have more money than we need to do all the things that are in that safety realm. Mm-hmm. And we've moved into what can we do? How can we help our kids launch and be in their areas? How can we give to charities? How can we be much more active on that front? Back in our 20s, the concept of giving, I didn't even think about that. And I'm very proud of the amount of money we've given over the past 10 years because it became a philosophical change around money for us. Now, that's a very you and I centric, but the question here is ask your partner, how do they view money? If they came from no money, they're going to have a wildly different take on money than if they came from a life of affluence from money. And it doesn't mean that's a worse or better view. It's just going to be a different view. If you've never struggled for money, then you might not have the appreciation of money. You might spend it more freely, which might actually in turn lead to you having less of it, right? So like it's all intertwined, but your money view, what does money mean to you, is an incredibly important discussion, more so than how are we going to manage it in some cases.
Right.
Okay. So what else? I mean, other ways in our show prep, we talked about other ways that people look at money. Some people look at it as simply a tool to have experiences, is to buy stuff. It's material. Like I'm going to get the new TV, the shoes, the travel, like it's an experiential or a material goods. Some people look at it as a scoreboard. I earn more than you. I collect more than you. I'm winning, right? There are different views.
I'm winning.
I mean, people look at it that way.
It's so very
I want
true.
the flashy car. I want the big house. I want all the status symbols. Just know what you're getting into on those fronts. Your money views, another way to get to those, or you can start having questions like, hey, what does abundance look like to you? Is it a dollar amount, or is it a needs met, or is it the ability to give? Because that means I have more in excess above. So a question I might ask you if I'm trying to explore your views on money is, hey, what does abundance look like? Or on the flip side, what does scarcity look like?
Yeah.
Like at what point do you get panicked? Are you comfortable if there's $1,000 in the bank account? Are you comfortable if there's $100 in the bank account? Do you need more to feel comfortable? Where's your scarcity line?
Right.
You know, if you need money for a safety net, how big does your net need to be? And where is your thought coming from? Were you scarred from earlier money issues? Maybe you're in your second marriage and maybe you had financial issues in your first marriage and you felt like you had no control. Like what's driving your views on money? What else, therapist? What else you got on the...
Kind of like with the parenting, how were you raised? Were you taught? Were you taught to save? Were you encouraged? Did you see your parents giving? That plays a role as well, is because for a lot of people, let's just say they live with their parents, let's just say until they're 18. And so that's 18 years of, did they spend lavishly? Did they live within their means, or did they
openly talk about money? Was money even something that was discussed? Do you have any idea how your parents managed their money? You talk about what you see modeled and everything. Your parents gave through their religious, so they would give to the church and everything. Do you know if they gave outside the church at all? Do you have visibility to that at all?
No. As in... You
don't know.
I don't think so. I think there were some things like helping, like the angel tree at Christmas time. I think there might have, but a consistent giving to a particular or multiple charity.
Right.
No, but they definitely, I physically saw them give money to the church.
Yeah. So my dad, again, by the time I was really formative and thinking about this, my dad was a single parent, probably just barely making ends meet on that sort of stuff. I don't have any recollection of him consistently donating to charities or anything, but I do know that when his mom had some issues with her tax bills and that sort of stuff, I know him and his brothers and sisters would pay for the taxes and stuff. So I know he gave some family giving, which is another whole money topic, which is, hey, what is your view on lending to family? What's your view on giving to family? If you're later in life and mom and dad come and they're struggling, what's your view on that? Our personal view is we don't lend money, but we'll give money if we can, right, to help. But we don't lend money because we don't like what that does to the relationship, right? So we either have the ability to give it or we can't participate. What's your view on debt is another thing. And how do you leverage it? Do you use it? Do you not? Are you adverse to it? Thoughts? Got something else there? I saw a little thought.
No, it was just that I just remember we didn't have that discussion. The debt one, that our debt-free lifestyle came later.
Much later.
As
did our charitable giving.
Mm-hmm.
Later.
That was not something we were doing. Because, you mentioned survival. You're more like, make sure that you can pay the rent or the mortgage, buy groceries for the week. That's more of the focus in those early years.
Yeah, and it's actually an interesting bit because we started giving before we were debt free,
Mhm.
because I think giving changes your perspective. And I think for me, at least, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in these things, it's funny. I am not a woo woo sort of spiritual person at all. But then I follow this with a statement of, but I believe that like you can bring good karma, and you can, if you do good things and you think positive thoughts, you can bring actions into life. I think something changes in your spirit and your approach to money when you hold it a little less
Mhm.
tightly, when you loosen it a little bit. And one of the ways of loosening it that I think is beneficial is giving some. There's value in giving it and helping a cause. And I remember some of our very early giving, I don't know if you remember this or not, was food bank, not food bank, but the where they make the sandwiches and the food they deliver to downtown Raleigh.
Mhm.
I remember going and volunteering there and giving very small amounts of money to help with that program. So we didn't have the finances to give, but we started giving with some time.
Okay.
And then as we allowed then finances, and not to get into details of it, but that's all supercharged in the last decade as money is loosened up a little bit and our muscle has been built to give. Now the girls were raised from the very first time they started managing money to give some. So they are much better givers because they've always been giving. So have your conversation with your partner. Where was giving in there? Where is your aspiration around giving? Where is your view on debt? What is your aspiration to debt? So you might be
Right.
using it now, but you have this aspiration of not using it. Make sure you're aligned on there. Now, I think that's the philosophy side of it. And again, chime in because I might be carrying a little too much of this conversation. But are your financial goals aligned is the other area. When you start talking about, hey, we're going to save money, why?